What's up, everyone, and welcome into episode number 511, where it is my honor and privilege to introduce a special guest joining this episode. That is a swimmer from Michigan, but who swims at Kenyon, Teo Jaworski. How you doing, Teo?
I'm doing good, doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Appreciate you joining. I know that your schedule has been pretty busy. It seems like at least the last couple of weeks, at least competition-wise, it's been a little bit not as busy, but how's things been going at Kenyon?
It's been going good. The semester's off to a good start. I guess we're about halfway through it. Looking at the calendar now. About halfway through the semester, which is pretty crazy to think about. Senior year. But classes have been going well. I have my compositions for I'm a Spanish and English double major, so
Okay.
I've been working on my senior compositions for English. I'm a creative writing emphasis in English. And so, a 40, 50 page piece of fiction is what's expected at the end of the
Wow.
semester for me in that major. And then Spanish as well. I've been working on, it's about a 20-page essay for Spanish as well. So it's been going good, a lot of work for sure. But, I've been able to manage that as well with swimming. The season's been going good. We have a nice set of guys on the team, and the ladies also are, talented as they always are. Ladies always
Yeah.
bring good energy. But it's been good building a solid men's team as well this year. As a senior, taking up a bigger leadership position every year, it's been good to finally step up as um, one of the main voices on the team. And I, always try my best to be a good influence, say the right things, be a point of confidence in the team.
Yep.
So yeah, it's been going good. The season's off to a good start. We've had a few meets already. I like where we're at. Obviously, there's still stuff we can improve on, but
Oh, yeah.
that's what can be said with every single team. So it's a
Yeah,
good.
because guess what? You still have a while to go left in the season. You haven't even had mid-season yet, so you still
Exactly.
have that to focus on too.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it weird being a senior? Like, is it a weird feeling kind of knowing that this is your last year?
Yeah. No, it's definitely weird. I feel like every year, like I remember my freshman year, the seniors on the team that year were telling us freshmen, enjoy every second. You have no idea how fast this is gonna go by. And I thought to them, that's ridiculous. Like, this is gonna be 4 long years. It's college. It's gonna be,
Yeah.
grueling. It's gonna, there's obviously gonna be its moments, but it's not gonna fly by. And then here I am, talking to you, saying it's my senior year, have less than 2 full semesters left. Um, yeah, it's crazy, knowing that like every moment I have, this will be my last. This is my last fall at Kenyon. This is my last, you name it. Last. I'm taking my last Spanish class is my plan. So, um, you know, just realizing that a lot of the things that I take for granted and think, oh, it'll just happen again next year.
Yeah.
Um, Not going to happen next year. I'll be graduated hopefully. Um,
I'm sure you will be.
yeah, I'll be off campus, out of school, and yeah, it's definitely still hasn't hit me fully. Obviously, still enjoying the time I have. But it's definitely a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah, and has it made you reflective a little bit of kind of the journey? I know it says you haven't hit it yet. It'll probably hit you more of like at your conference meet. If you go to nationals, that'll probably when it truly hits you. But have you really been reflective at all about kind of your swimming journey? Because you've been swimming for a very long time, and this is kind of it for you for the most part. You can do like masters, you can do stuff like that, but like this is your last year.
No, it's definitely it's made me realize, yeah, this is probably likely. I'd say 100% will be my last year of competitive swimming. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
I'll get in the pool to stay in shape in the future, but I don't see myself, competing after college. Not by any means. So, it's definitely making me like really want to hone in, like focus in on, any kind of aspect of whatever race. Like I really want to, nail down a good lineup. I've switched around events the past few years. I came in as a mid distance swimmer, swimming the 2 free, 5 free mile. Transitioned to the 4 IM last year, and also dabbled in the 100 free. And now this year, I've started to lock down on the 1 free, 2 free, 5 free. So really like putting a lot of focus, a lot of emphasis into what I see as, my three strongest events.
Yeah.
Wanting to contribute on relays as well. It's just made me realize, this is obviously last season. Every practice I go to, that's the last practice we're gonna have of that.
Yeah.
We have a brutal Tuesday morning practice. That's 4 IM work. So working, all four strokes, long distances. Um, every one of them is it's a grind, but
Oh yeah.
I look back after every practice and I'm like, wow, I only have about, honestly, like 5 or 6 more of those left in my Kenyon career. So
Yeah. Exactly.
appreciating the hard sets while also, still fighting for my life in the middle of them. So yeah, it's made me reflective for sure. Um,
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like that balance. Like you're going to miss it, but at the same time, you're like during that set, you're like, I'm not going to miss this whatsoever.
yeah,
It's kind of like that reflective part. You're like, I want to get this with. I don't want to experience this. But yeah, at Kenyon, you've gone through kind of the worst, hardest events, stuff like that. And we'll talk kind of about that kind of transition, all that kind of stuff in a little bit. But I kind of want to kind of have you be a little bit more reflective. I know obviously you have a while left to go still at Kenyon, still probably at least half the season at this point, which still a lot of time, but still an ability to be reflective right now is just talk about kind of your journey and just how you started at the beginning and just when you kind of realized like, hey, this was a sport that I am going to have a future in.
yeah. Yeah, as you know, I've been swimming for a while. I started very young. My parents I have two older sisters, so I'm the youngest of three, and they got my sisters into swimming, probably before I was born. Um, and I followed in their footsteps. We were all on the same summer league, the Bird
Yeah.
Park Sharks. Shout out the Bird Park Sharks. And that was a great experience as a kid. I had, my best friend. He was born just 9 days before me.
Oh wow.
Matt DeBona. Him and I, swam throughout, throughout our lives up until college together. And so, yeah, I built a lot of memories, a lot of experiences in the pool as a kid, with my sisters, with my teammates, with coaches that shaped a lot of my childhood, my life, from summer league, and then I joined club honestly a bit late. I usually stuck to summer league up until maybe fourth or fifth grade, so obviously not
Okay.
insanely late, but um, a few of my friends had already been in club, year round swimming for a few years,
Yeah.
and so I felt a bit behind on that, and then caught up, put the work in, I guess, as a little kid. Swam on a few different teams, the Ipsy Otters, Saline swim team, Club Wolverine eventually, once I got into high school. And so, yeah, it's been, a mix of summer league as well as, USA swim. And then once I got into high school, I really realized, I could continue swimming after high school in this. And my high school coach, Steph Kurska,
Yeah.
um, she was a huge part of, my, I don't know, development, my growth as a person, as an athlete. Um, and she encouraged me to obviously look into swimming in college, as a swim coach would. And yeah, I first learned of Kenyon through Fawn. He was 2 years
Okay.
older than me. He also went to Pioneer High School. He went to the same high school as me, and he committed to Kenyon, when I was a sophomore. And that was the first time I heard of Kenyon, and it's a very small school, less than 2,000
Yeah.
people. So I'm just lucky he committed. Otherwise, who knows if I would have ever heard of that school. So I found out that it was a writing. It's a very big liberal arts college, but it's known as the Writers College.
Okay.
And that was something that I've been passionate about a lot of my life as well. Since like I'd say the third grade is when I started reading Harry Potter and
Oh,
wanting
wow.
to write, um, because of the stories that Harry Potter gave me. So ever since then, I knew I wanted to do something in writing. And hearing about Kenyon, it's a very fast, very competitive school. Someone I know, just committed there. It's a
Oh,
writing
yeah.
college, so that gave me a lot of interest in that school. And then the year later, my junior year of high school, one of the seniors on the team again ended up going to Kenyon. So there was a pipeline forming
Oh, yeah.
from Pioneer to Kenyon on the swim team. First Vaughn and then Cam Wilson. And so at that point, I had started getting into contact with the coach. I went on a couple visits my senior year and fell in love with the campus. It's beautiful, especially in the fall right now. The trees are beautiful, the leaves changing colors. We have a middle path, right down the middle of campus,
Oh, I
like a
love that.
mile straight path, just from one end to the other. Um, just walking down that path, as a recruit, on my visit was it just felt right. And so
Yeah.
coming to Kenyon was a pretty easy choice. I looked at a few other schools. I looked at Denison. I looked at Oakland University in Michigan. I looked at Kalamazoo.
Okay.
But ultimately, obviously decided to commit to Kenyon, and I'm glad I made that decision. I feel like I've grown a lot in these past 3.5, 4 years. Um, and yeah, so obviously throughout high school, it became clearer and clearer that swimming in college was something I wanted to do. I never looked at like going to University of Michigan or Michigan State, where a lot of my
Okay.
high school friends wanted to go, because realistically, I probably wasn't going to make University of Michigan roster, and Michigan State, unfortunately, their team got cut a
Yep.
year or two before I was looking at schools, and so wasn't going to consider either of those schools as an option because of the lack of swimming that I would have enjoyed there. And so yeah,
Yeah.
Kenyon was a pretty easy choice for me.
Yeah, and obviously you had to go to Kenyon from the pipeline from the guy for 2 years prior, then the year prior to that, so you had to be the next one to join in Kenyon at that point, right?
I had to, yeah.
Yeah, but you did mention, first off, reading Harry Potter at 3rd grade, like, I've never read Harry Potter at all, but in 3rd grade, I think that's really impressive. I've heard great things about Harry Potter, never read or seen any of the movies. I know that might be, taboo for anyone listening to this. It might be taboo for you, so I do apologize about that, but you did mention Matt and then obviously your sisters as well, kind of throughout your journey have kind of been big parts of your journey, big parts of the reason why you did the sport. Do you think without them, do you think you would have stayed in the sport? Or do you think it was kind of like those key pieces and then maybe like the coaches along the way that kind of like helped you realize like, hey, like the impact that they're having on me, the impact that the sport has on me, because it's important to obviously have impactful people throughout a career but can also truly help someone throughout their career as well.
Yeah. That's a good question. I'd say my sisters, they were definitely an influence for me picking up the sport in the first place. But they ended up, quitting around the time they got to high school. So after
Okay.
eighth grade, um, after my sisters reached eighth grade, it was around the time they stopped. Um, but obviously I kept going. I had, yeah, like you said, Matthew DeBona, my very good friend. He continued swimming, and we continued swimming throughout, middle school, high school together. Mm. Um, but yeah, I'd say a lot of teammates stuck with me. We stuck together throughout our entire time swimming. Elementary, middle, high school together. There was a lot of people. A very small community would
Yeah.
always see the same people. Um, and yeah, it was a big part. Growing up together, getting faster with these people every day. Um, and yeah, it's just obviously, yeah, that's why I followed Vaughn, followed Cam to Kenyon, was because like I knew these guys, I knew who they were. We had grown together, and I wanted to I don't know, follow that same path, grow with them even more.
And
And
it's one of those things about especially the sport of swimming, like, it's one of those sports that you don't see a lot of sports that start out at, like, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't necessarily start out at that in the beginning, more of kinda like high school, but it's one of those sports that you kind of go through and you experience tough times together, and there's gonna be the ability to kind of, like, lean on each other, and I think that's kinda like the unique thing about swimming is that not only those early morning practices, I'm sure you've probably had plenty of those throughout your career, but, like, it's a unique sport because of that. Like, it's an individual sport, but it's a team sport. It's about basically embracing the suck throughout the process, and I feel like that's one of those things that you talked about and why it's so important is having those teammates, having those impactful individuals in your life because you kinda have to have that to keep going because they're embracing that, you're embracing that. If you don't have those individuals, then there's that real possibility of that conversation that you have to have is this even worth it? And it's one of those things that I think truly really builds a connection for any swimmer, any diver that has ever done the sport is you kind of understand what it's like to go through that. And I feel like going through that in itself just builds a different bond than any other sport.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. Obviously, training this previous summer, I was training, 99% by myself,
Yeah,
and that was never fun. So yeah, teammates help me get through every single practice. They get me through the season, get me through meets, they get me through everything. Obviously, if this was a individual sport, training by myself, 24/7, 365, I wouldn't be here.
yeah.
So yeah, I owe a lot to my teammates. And I hope they can say the same for me. I try and push my teammates. I try to always be, the most vocal in the pool during a practice. If it's a hard set, people's heads are hanging down. They're catching their breath, gasping on the wall. I'm trying to, provide some, encouragement, some
Okay.
motivation
Yep.
in the middle of a set. It's always going to be hard. We're all hurting. We're all in this together. Is the message I always try and send is this, you're not by yourself in this. This is a struggle for all of us, but we make each other stronger. And so, yeah, I'd say having teammates, especially, at Kenyon, I'd say my teammates are the greatest. Um, and they're just a source of energy for me, a source of motivation, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I love to hear that, and when you said we're all in this together, I was thinking of, like, High School Musical, like the "We're all in this together."
Yeah.
No one wants to hear me sing, so I'll stop there, but that was kinda the first thing that came to mind, but obviously teammates are important, but I do know your high school coach,
Mm,
was extremely important to you because I know you did mention, like, she was kinda the one that really kinda pushed you to kinda, like, pursue swimming in college.
mhm.
But just like, how much did she help you become the swimmer that you are? Because you talked about like development, you talked about the impact she had, and I know you told me a few stories about her. If you want to share one or two of those, you absolutely can. But like, she's a very well respected coach from where you're from, Hall of Fame coach, like extremely successful coach. And it's one of those things when you have that type of coach, they can make such a dramatic impact on your life, not only in the pool, but I'm sure out of the pool. But truly seems like she was one of those people for you.
Yeah. Yes. Coach Steph was, a huge part of, my swim experience. Even though it was just, 4 years of my life at Pioneer. She stuck with me, you know, after. I've trained, other than last summer, I've trained with her each previous summer after college.
Okay.
Um, and so, once I was out of club, that swimming in college, no
Yeah.
longer went to Club Wolverine practices over the summer or over breaks. I went to Pioneer practices over the summer and over breaks. So obviously, I had Vaughn and Cam also coming on every break with me. So we had a little Kenyon lane to ourselves
I love that.
at the end of a pool. But yeah, she can be scary. Steph can be a scary person. She's not gonna sugarcoat things. She's not gonna hold your hand through it all. She's gonna you know, maybe it's a little bit of a trial by fire, but
Okay.
that it gets you better. That that fosters improvement. That fosters growth. And I'd say her sets, they can kill you, but at the end of the season, when you're in the middle of that race, they get you ready for it more than I'd say a lot of other coaches can. I'd say let me think of one story. I know. Excuse me. My senior year, leading up to our state championship, we had just won the year prior, and we wanted to start a little streak. So
Yeah.
going into it, we were feeling confident, and there were a few very talented swimmers on our team. I was definitely not the best on the team. We had Ryan Hume, Jack Wilkening, um, just to name a couple that are swimming at U of M right now.
Okay.
So there was those two. We're definitely the top dogs on the team. Jack Wilkening was a crazy backstroker. Ryan could swim basically everything. And so I was, seated up there. I was high up, seated in the 2 free, in the 5 free going into states. But Ryan was ahead of me in the 2 free and 5 free. But he also had, the fastest 2 IM as well in the state. So Steph kind of put a little faith in me by taking Ryan out of the 2 free, even though he's faster. She took him out of the 2 free for the meet, put me in there, and let Ryan swim the 2 IM and the 5 free. Um, and so she said, Teo, you can win this 2 free. And I remember looking at her, and maybe it was a bit cocky of me, but I said, like, I know. I told her, I know I can win this 2 free. And so the day of the meet, it was at Holland's, one of Holland, Michigan's pools.
Okay.
Um, and, preliminaries happen. And Steph had given me a piece of advice the year before about the 2 free that I still remember to this day. She just tells me swim it like it's 150. So just die at the 150, kill
Yeah.
yourself that third 50, and whatever you have left is what you'll give that fourth. So prelims went well. I was the only one who broke 140 that day. So I set myself up nicely for the next day. I was seated first. Obviously going into the final session. Um, but I had felt like I had held back a little bit. I hadn't fully put myself out there that third 50, just because I knew I also had a 500 to swim that day, and I had
Yep.
finals the next day. Obviously, would want to make it back in both events, swim both events the next day, and so I think I was seated second or third in the 500, and then first in the 200, and so going back for that final session on Saturday, Steph told me again, reminded me, drilled it into my head. It's just 150. That fourth
Yeah.
50, it's anyone's race. It's whoever wants it the most is gonna take that fourth 50. And so I remember thinking in my head that swim, the guy next to me, the second seed, had gotten out to a lead over me. He was maybe like half a body length or so ahead of me going into the third 50. And so that third 50, I started pushing myself, caught up to him. And then the fourth 50, I just put my head down. I stopped breathing. I usually breathe every other, but I started breathing fours instead. So
Okay.
I halved my breathing that last 50 and pulled ahead of him. And Steph that was the most proud I've ever seen her of me, at least. There's
Yeah.
definitely times where she's been more proud of, if it's Ryan or if it's Matthew Siegel or some other monster swimmers on the team. But it was a special moment between me and her, and I really appreciated the trust that she gave me, letting Ryan win the 2 IM and the 5 free, and letting me get a little gold medal as well for the 2 free was a good moment. And she was very proud of me. I was proud of myself. Obviously, my parents were there to watch. It was my senior year, so it was a very good memory, and couldn't have done it without her, obviously.
I love that because just winning an individual state championship in itself is a huge accomplishment, but it had to feel that much more rewarding for you, not only because that you accomplished that, but because she saw in you what you thought of yourself, and I think that's just the coolest thing is that she trusted you and that you're like, "I got you," and it was almost kinda like that whole, like, situation of like, "Hey, like, just go out and do it," and you did it, and feel like that's just kind of, 1, rewarding in itself, but 2, just kind of shows you what the type of relationship you have with her, is that she did that, she took a chance on you. I don't even wanna say took a chance on you because you were already ranked that highly anyways, but, like, she believed in you, and, like, you basically showed her right back for why to do it, and obviously, you're an individual state champion because of that. That's an awesome accomplishment by itself. I know you won a team one, at least a couple of them, so that's in itself is a huge accomplishment as well, but that's a story that you're gonna have for the rest of your life. Like, that's gonna probably be, I don't wanna say a defining moment because you are gonna have defining moments in the sport of
Mm.
swimming, but that's just one of those things of, like, what makes the connection between a coach and its athlete just so unique, and what a way to end your high school career before you even got into Kenyon.
Yeah. Yeah, that was before, yeah, I committed to Kenyon. I was looking at Oakland. I remember, yeah, the assistant coach. I think he's now the head coach at
Yeah, yeah,
Oakland.
Peter.
Mitch. I think it was Mitch.
Or
It was Mitch
oh,
Alkis.
Mitch, yeah, Mitch,
Yeah,
Peter was the old one. Mitch,
yeah.
yeah.
Peter was the old coach, but Mitch was the one who was in contact with me during the recruiting process. And right after the final swim, he sent like 20 fire emojis on text. And
That's
so,
awesome.
that also always felt good. Giving myself a little bit of a, boosting my stock a little bit in the
Oh,
recruiting
yeah.
process. But yeah, it was a very good way to, wrap up my high school swim career. Obviously continued swimming in the spring with Club Wolverine, but
Yeah.
yeah, to have her put that faith in me and for me to be able to back it up, prove her right, prove myself, um, all in one swim is, yeah, like you said, it is a pillar. It's a defining moment in my swim career for sure, and I I can see myself, looking back on it maybe as an old head, reminiscing on the good old days
Yeah.
of back in my day. I swam the two free and won it, so it'll be a good story to tell. Um,
I was just gonna say you're acting like you're old, but you're not even old anyways. So I don't know if you can say back in my good old days, but if you want to take that approach, obviously you can. Obviously, you're an older swimmer on the Kenyan team. We'll talk about Kenyon here shortly. I do want to ask you one question before we kind of get into Kenyon. I know you kind of talked about why you made your decision, so we'll kind of get into the beginning of Kenyon here shortly, but you did mention that obviously, like, trial by fire, like, that's one of those things that she was really known for, and sometimes tough love is the best type of love, and you talked about that, you've talked glowingly about her, you've talked about just how much impact she's had on you, but you also did mention her difficult sets, her difficult practices, and before I get into Kenyon, I do wanna ask you this question. What's the hardest set she ever made you do, or what's a set that you, to this day, won't forget?
Oof, that's a good question. I'm always bad at like remembering. I have terrible like pattern recognition in sets. Like
Okay.
it's usually every week we would do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like Monday would be one thing, Tuesday would be another, Wednesday. And every week I'd be like, huh, I wonder what we're doing Monday. And then it'd just be the same set as if my memory was erased the second that set was completed the week before. But
Yeah.
I looking back, there's definitely practices I have remembered. There's VO2 max. I believe we would do that on Wednesdays. VO2
Okay.
max. And it could be anywhere from like 10 to 20 50s. Um, Usually it would be about on the 130, so a minute and a half rest. Um, or rather a minute and a half intervals, just going as fast as you can each 50. So sometimes I'd switch strokes, sometimes I'd just do freestyle.
Yeah.
And then I think it wasn't until maybe my sophomore or junior year that Steph kind of adjusted these practices so that there were people who were doing the majority of the team would do the VO2 max on the 130, but
Okay.
a select few of us, the distance group, which I obviously was a part of, would be doing these same 50s, but on the 45. So
Oh,
half the rest or half the interval. Um, Obviously not going quite as fast, so it was more of a 500 pace set. But she would definitely prefer to see us go faster than 500 pace as opposed to slower. So she was definitely still
yeah.
pushing us to test ourselves, test the limits. So yeah, that was very difficult. And I'd look over at the other group doing the minute and a half intervals, and I'd be like, those lucky guys doing
Yeah.
doing it on twice the interval. But obviously that helps contribute to kind of the swimmer I became and was. And so
Yeah.
that was a hard set, as well as this other set. It was a bit of a ladder set. It was four or five different parts of the set, and it would all be like 600 yards total in each leg of the set. It was like a 600 straight negative split into like three 200s pull. um I'm kind of freestyling a little bit, but it was like three 200s pull, negative split again, and the intervals would
Okay.
be very tight, like 105, like holding 105s on the 100 type of set. And then it would be like, or sorry, it would go from like 600 to two 300s, then three 200s, six 100s, and then like 12 50s at the end. Like just hold as fast as you can go.
Yeah.
So those kind of sets would they would test my patience, my endurance. They would test my, like, how far am I willing to push myself every practice. But those two sets were definitely staples of Coach Steph's workouts, and yeah, they've definitely stuck with me. And sometimes, going back over break, I dread running into those days at practice when she's giving us that kind of ladder set, or that the
Yeah.
VO2 max. I'm used to it. We do that as well here, but I haven't encountered that type of ladder set where it's 600 to 300s, that kind of thing, anywhere else. And it's definitely it scarred me, but in a
I was
good.
just gonna say it probably made you contemplate if you even wanted to continue swimming at certain points, if I had to guess.
Yeah, there were points where I was like, I could just get out of the pool, get changed, and leave and never come back. But I'm glad I didn't make that decision. That would be a bit drastic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously you wouldn't be where you are currently if you made that decision. But you did talk about like the V2, like VO set, stuff like that. Obviously, like something kind of popular now for some practices in college. There's the things of like suiting up for those. Do you guys do anything like that at Kenyon? I'm assuming you never did anything like that in high school, probably, or did you guys never really suit up for anything prior to Kenyon?
Um, that's actually funny you bring that up. It was just Friday, actually. Just a couple days ago, we had, I think, based on my recollection, the first like actual practice that we suited up for like extended period. There's definitely been, leading up to our midseason meet, our total performance invitational, or leading up to conference or nationals. There's been practices where we do, a takeout swim or a broken swim where we're
Yeah.
suited up for that, but that's not for the full practice. But we did have a set. It was 28 50s. It was two rounds of 14
Okay.
50s on the 130. Yeah, 130. Um, just like the good old days. But we did throw some old tech suits on there. Definitely not, not brand new, not premium condition, but
Yeah.
threw on some a tech suit for the 2850s, and see how fast we can hold. So definitely felt good. Felt good in the water to have the suit on. It always, helps pick my hips up, keep my legs moving. It makes me feel powerful and fast in the water. But that was the first time really doing a full set from start to finish with the suit on. And yeah, never did that in high school. Unless I'm forgetting, but no, I can't say we ever did in high school. That just wasn't Steph's mo. But yeah, Coach Danny here at Kenyon, one of the assistant coaches, she is trying new things out this year, and that was one of them, and I enjoyed it. You know, obviously I think it, brings the same effect. It has the same impact as not suited, but it gives you
Yeah.
that extra confidence just in the practice, which always helps.
Yeah, a little bit of a change of pace, little change of mindset as well. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about like conference. Like I'm sure when you're using like a new tech suit and like taper and going through all of that, that's just kind of a different type of mindset. We'll kind of talk about that here shortly. But I want to get into a little bit of kind of the transition to Kenyon before we kind of get into this year, senior year, kind of leading up to conference, all that kind of stuff. But obviously having kind of a couple guys in front of you that had committed to Kenyon, did that make kind of the transition a little bit easier? Did you kind of like understand what to expect when you got there? Like, did they tell you anything, or did it really not make that much a difference because the difference between high school and college swimming was just that dramatic? Obviously, I know that you had hard sets, hard practices prior to that, so maybe the transition wasn't as difficult for you, but I'm sure it was probably a little bit more of a transition.
Yeah. Obviously, I have nothing to compare to what it would have been like without them. So
Yeah,
in reality, who knows? But I would say I would like to think that it made the transition easier. Just having two other upperclassmen older than me on the team already definitely gave me people that I could immediately know. I could trust them. I can rely on them. If it's to confide in them, if it's to have an immediate friend on the team. If I'm nervous, was never nervous making friends on the team, thankfully, but was always a good safety blanket or whatever you
yeah.
want to call it. Those two, and so I'm definitely glad that they were on the team and that I was able to be there with them as well. Experience for Vaughn, experience 2 years of Kenyon with him. For Cam, experience 3 years of Kenyon with him. Um, and yeah, they helped me in more than just athletically. They gave me tips and advice that they use for academics. They are both incredibly intelligent human beings. They both have very very they're they set themselves up very well for
Yeah.
after Kenyon. They both have full-time jobs. Vaughn was working at the Fed, and now he works at Overtime Sports actually.
Wow.
And then Cam is working. Couldn't tell you the company, but he's working in Virginia as well. He
Okay.
had a internship after his junior year, and then was offered a full-time job before senior year even started for him. So
Oh wow.
they're both very successful in what they majored in. I believe stats, poli sci, economics, philosophy, those types of majors. More or less. So they're different, different specialties than I am education wise, but the advice that they gave me for schoolwork, for managing the balance between, work, swim, social life, all that stuff, maintaining health, is very valuable stuff that I was, subconsciously or not, I, you know, registered that stuff, and I think it's helped me on my in my career a lot more than if I was, the first pioneer swim uh, person to go to Kenyon. So yeah, I'm definitely glad that they paved the path for me.
Yeah, and obviously having, like you said, the 2 people that you know, like, to kinda understand how to approach things, understand, like, balance between school and swim. Like, I'm sure probably some of the practices you experienced pretty early on, like, weren't extremely easy. Like, did you have, like, a quote, unquote, like, welcome to college, like, swim moment, like a specific practice, a specific meet, maybe something that you're like, didn't go as well as you were hoping for or expected, or maybe just something you weren't expecting whatsoever? Because obviously having 2 former teammates there and current teammates at Kenyon. I'm sure they probably told you probably a lot of this stuff, but I'm sure there's probably a moment here or there that you're like, okay, like this might be a little bit of a different approach.
Yeah, that's a good question as well. I can't think of like a specific practice or a specific set that really, pushed the boundaries and said, welcome to college for me. Not that any practice was easy, but
Oh
there
yeah,
wasn't one where I was like, wow, this is college. It kind of just transitioned, right from high school into college. I think Coach Steph really helped set us up that way in that
yeah.
there wasn't that kind of like rude awakening for us. We were we had been battle tested in high school, and so the battles just kept coming in college, and you know, took them in what I would like to think I took them in stride, more or
Yeah.
less. But there was definitely meets, there was definitely races during meets that I was like, oof, yeah, that's a stinker. That's not
Yeah.
not something I'm gonna remember fondly. So, um, yeah, my freshman year, I hadn't really swam the mile too much in high school. I swam it like once the fall of my senior year. And I maybe swam it once or twice in the 10 years prior. So I was very new to that event, the mile and even the 1,000. And so freshman year, maybe it's hard to imagine now, but I had some very long hair.
Okay.
Like then I had some very wavy long hair and had a difficult time fitting in my cap. So one of my races, um, I was swimming the 1,000 and halfway through, or even less than halfway, I think it was about a 300 in, my cap just, gave up, fell off my head. And so I was swimming with my mane just, covering my eyes, covering my goggles for about 700 more yards.
Oh
I'd
wow.
have trouble seeing we have the counter at the end of the wall. I'd have
Yeah.
to, I'd have to hope that my hair parts with the water when I look up to look at the counter. That was definitely a challenge. It wasn't
Yeah.
so much a terrible time or I felt the pain of it, but it's just like the embarrassment and like the the mental agony of
Oh yeah.
dealing with my hair while also dealing with a long distance event that I'm not used to. And then there was also another, so that was 1,000, but then about a month later, um, I swam the mile for the first time because the mile isn't typically swam in dual meets. It's only the 1,000 free for
Yeah.
dual meet, and then the mile is more of a championship replacement of the 1,000. And so I was swimming the mile for the first time in college. Second time in the past, 4 or 5 years, um, more or less. And I hadn't really been training it either. I had been training more the 2 free and the 5 free. Um, there was a special group that our coach Jess had, which was, specifically mile pace, and that just wasn't the group I was in freshman year.
Yeah.
Um, and so I remember I was talking with one of my seniors at the time, Colin, who was a fantastic miler himself, and we were talking about like, oh, what kind of 50, like what are you trying to hold every 50? Because I don't know how familiar you are with counters, but when you ask someone to count for you, sometimes you ask them, can you shake the counter? Can you shake the
Yeah.
number at the wall if I'm
Yep.
going over a specific pace? So perfect that you understand that. I had a pre agreed on interval that I was asking my counter Jake, another senior, to shake for me if I cross that threshold. But Colin was like, dude, you should go even faster. Like you can go faster than that. Ask him to like he- he'll shake it if you go over 28.7 instead of 29.5 or something. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, you're right. I'll push myself. And so about 200 yards in, Jake was already shaking it. And I was like, oh,
You're
I
like, oh no.
hate feeling it. Yeah, I was like, this isn't off to a good start. I'd already started to feel the pain in the mile, and that's never a good sign.
No.
200 yards in when you have another 1450 in you. Um, so that was a pretty brutal swim. I don't know if I broke 16:30. So that was a pretty bad swim. Bad first mile. Bad bad swim overall as a freshman, but I bounced back at conference fortunately in the mile and went a best time. Dropped
Hey, there
about
you go.
yeah, dropped about, I don't know, 45 seconds maybe, 40, 40-ish seconds from that TPSC time to conference. So it was a good feeling at the end of the season, but in the moment, uh, was not a good feeling.
And the one thing I've heard about swimming the mile is if you don't get in a rhythm, like, it's kind of over, or it's not over, but, like, it's the worst thing in the world is if you don't get in a rhythm when you're swimming a mile.
Yeah, yeah. I remember looking back on it now, I had tried like way too hard to go like long and strong. So I was like really pushing my stroke count, keeping it like 12 strokes per 25, which is just it was way too long, way too um just stretched out
Yeah.
for swimming the mile. I was still getting used to how you swim the mile, and I thought maybe a long stroke, maybe distance per stroke. If I take less strokes, I'll be less tired, right? But no, the contrary was the truth. And so looking back, I should have, definitely gotten into a faster rhythm. Um, you know, Even if it's more strokes, you're pulling less water and putting less pressure and less exhausting your muscles less um than if you are, taking 12 strokes instead of 14, something
Yep.
like that. So yeah, getting into a rhythm was something I had to learn the hard way. But definitely adjusted that come conference time and was able to go a much faster time once I had a bit more experience under my belt on what might happen if I swim it the wrong way.
Yeah, sometimes the best lessons are the hardest lessons, and it sounds like you learned that lesson pretty quickly, and it made you a better swimmer because of that.
Absolutely.
So, obviously, you swam the mile, but I also know you swam the 4 AM as well. I know for majority of people, especially swimmers, like, they might deem that as, like, the 2 most difficult events you can do. I know there's a couple other, like, maybe, like, backstroke, stuff like that, kinda depending. Maybe, like, the 200 and, like, 500, freestyle, I know some people might say that specifically as well, just because, like, it's not a sprint, but it's not really distance either, at least for 200, so there's just kinda different ways to approach that. I'm sure you've kinda gone through that as well, but, just how mentally and physically, like, demanding are doing those, like, events? Like, obviously, it's a really mentally and demanding sport, but, like, those 2 events are just brutal, and most people would never wanna even do those.
Yeah. Um, yes, I still ask myself that same question. Why am I doing these events? But yeah, sometimes with teammates of mine, with friends of mine, we contemplate what is the hardest event? What are the top three hardest events or whatever? Um, but yeah, I find myself always coming back to the 4 a.m. is definitely up there. I'd say the two free might be harder
Yeah,
just because when you swim a two free right, it's just as Coach Steph said, you're gonna die at the 150, and that last
yep,
50 is just survival instincts. It's just who wants to get to the wall first at that point. So it's a brutal event as well. I'd say I don't swim this, but the 200 back as well. If you're doing it right, you're pushing, 10, 15 meters underwater every wall, and that's not going to feel good that second half. The mile for me, sometimes it can feel like the easiest thing. Sometimes it can feel like the hardest. So it's a really volatile event for me. I haven't swam it since in almost a year. I haven't swam it
okay.
since last mid-season meet. So um, who knows how I'd swim it now? But yeah, swimming these hard events, the 4 a.m. for sure, the two free for sure. Um, I don't know. I pride myself on like I don't know if you call it mental fortitude, my perseverance in these events. I remind myself up on the blocks like I've trained for this. I've done so many harder things in practice. Like
Yeah,
Coach Jess writes these Tuesday mornings, these 4 a.m. practices so that they're harder than a 4 a.m. so that when you have this 4 a.m. in front of you at a meet, um, you'll be over prepared for it rather
yeah,
than underprepared. So the trick to doing these hard events is doing even harder practices. That's, it
Exactly.
doesn't sound glamorous, doesn't sound fun, but that's what you got to do. You got to kill yourself in an event. You got to kill yourself even harder in practice. And so these 4 a.m. practices in the mornings have taught me it could be worse. It could be worse. He has us do, you know, 4,000 yards of an IM set, and then at the end of it, he says, "Oh yeah, by the way, let's get up, let's get on the blocks, and let's do a 400 IM straight and see what you got." So being able to swim the event outside of the competitive like meet atmosphere also takes some of the pressure off and says like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I can swim this." Things like that. Excuse me. And for the two free as well, those VO2 max 50s, just pouring on 50 after 50, exhausting yourself, putting everything you have into each 50, and then having to repeat that. Um, that kind of stuff has definitely helped me improve in those events and brace myself, prepare myself for what I have to do once it comes meet time. Once the once I'm up on the blocks for the two free, I can remember I just did 28 of these 50s last Friday.
Yeah.
What's four of them back to back to back to back. So um testing my limits in practice has helped me, embrace the pain once it comes to a meet. And that's something I'm very proud of. That I pride myself on not running from the pain, you know, really learning to enjoy it. Um, Not hiding from a hard set, but really pouring everything I have into each practice is something that I I try to instill in my teammates, but at the least I can the least I can do is lead by example and do it myself
Exactly.
and pour what I have into my set and hope that people see that and want to do the same.
Yeah, like the meets itself should be the fun part of the sport. Like it's going to suck, it's going to hurt, but at the same time, it should be like the fun part where you get to compete, where you show off how much work you have done. And I think you're really talking about that. And just like, hey, you know what? It's still going to suck, it's still going to hurt, but like everything we've done prior to that is going to obviously make us better so that we can perform at those meets. But one thing you also did talk about is obviously kind of the events you do now. And at the start of Kenyon, you were kind of more of maybe mid distance. You did swim the mile, stuff like that. But now you're kind of, I don't know, sprint mid distance a little bit, kind of depending on the like 500. Some people might view as distance, stuff like that. You're not doing the mile anymore, which I'm sure you're probably pretty thrilled about. But just dramatically, how different is the training approach to when it comes to going from your freshman, sophomore year, focusing on mid distance, swimming the mile, to what you're doing now? Because it's different events, it's different distances. There has to be different ways of approaching it, different ways of training for it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely been a dramatic change. The 100 free kind of it came to me a bit randomly last year. I had never been a good sprinter. It was always like my second half of events would carry it. Like
Yeah,
in high school, winning that two free at states, I went out my fastest 100 to go my fastest 200. So things like that, like I would like I don't know, come when I'm faced with a sprint event, it would give me like a weird I don't know, apprehension about the race. Like I would never be able to um rotate my arms like windmill like crazy.
yeah,
I didn't have any, fast twitch muscles. I was never the fastest to get off the block or anything. Um I won stuff based on mostly like endurance and stamina, things like that, rather than, you know, get off the block like that. Um and boom, the race is over already. So it's an adjustment. Working with Coach Kosuke, who's an amazing coach, has definitely changed my perspective on just the sport in general. Um, excuse me. He's he just has a very different outlook than any of my other coaches have before. He loves working with tempo trainers, which is a little computer chip that we put under our cap that beeps,
Okay.
beep, 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 and so it sets the tempo, whether it's during an IM training group, because my backstroke and breaststroke tempo is also it leaves things to be desired as well. But also my freestyle tempo is not up to the standard of a sprinter yet, so I'm still stuck sometimes swimming 100 free like a 200 or a 500, and
Yeah.
coach is like, "What are you doing? Your arms are so slow right now." And I'm just like, "I'm sorry, that's what I'm used to. I'm not used to just like going stroke after stroke after stroke. I like that like little hitch in my stroke where I extend my arm and wait a little bit and stretch a little bit. But no, sometimes you got to square those shoulders and just boom, go at it like a boxer.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've definitely had difficult time grasping and adjusting to in this past year. But no, the 100 free is it's a change, and I think I'm the more I practice it, the better I am getting at it. Right now, I'm training still for the 400 IM, even though I'm not perhaps planning on swimming it at the end of the season.
Okay.
So later on in the season, kind of my plan with my coach is to start transitioning into more sprint practices as opposed to aerobic, like higher volume practices.
Yeah.
So looking into the future, I'll be working my tempo, my quick twitch type of things with Kosuke a lot more, I believe. And so that's still in the future. Hasn't happened yet. I still do a couple practices with him every so often.
Okay.
And it definitely helps me. But it's like I have to approach that practice with a completely different mindset, with a completely different mentality than approaching a Jess practice or a Danny practice. Because Kosuke, he throws just a complete curveballs at you every set. And so yeah, I'd say it's a complete it's a different change. It's not having to deal with a lot of yards. It's having to deal with really pushing your tempo, really pushing like the
Yeah.
speed at which you can turn out, like revolve, rotate your shoulders, whatever it is, um, for shorter distances, but at a much higher intensity rate. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I've heard the term windmill by quite a few sprinters of how like sometimes it takes a while to even get to that point. Sounds like once you kind of get to that point, it kind of just becomes like natural, but usually it takes a little while to get there. But that's the cool thing about like swimming now, is just how much like technology has like kind of like grown the sport. I actually hadn't heard of that beeping thing that goes on your caps. That's pretty
That's
cool.
cool.
I
Yeah.
didn't even know that was such a thing. There's obviously like underwater cameras. There's like film you can do now. That's just the way swim has evolved, and it's probably something that you've obviously applied to what you do, but it's probably helped you become a better swimmer. Probably has helped everyone else become a better swimmer. There's just so much more that goes into it, and I feel like that's just kind of how far and how cool swimming has become because of those things that can truly help you obviously get better.
Mhm. Yeah. Kosuke in particular is definitely he out of the three coaches, he's definitely the one to experiment with this these alternative technologies like the tempo trainer, or we play with I actually haven't been in the practices when he does it, but when I'm training with the mid distance group or the distance group, I see Sprint over there with Kosuke playing with like PVC pipes. So
Okay.
really working like shoulder mobility, holding the PVC pipe above their head, stretching those arms, extending that. So he does all kinds of unorthodox
Yeah.
approaches to practices. There's like power machines. So there's obviously the racks that you strap a belt around you and pull weight to maybe across the whole pool to 25 yards, or maybe it only extends to 12 and a half. So
Yeah.
different kinds of power there um, as well. So working power has been another thing that's more sprint focused. Definitely not something you have to worry about as much in the mile or anything. But yeah, adding power, adding that type of the tempo to these sets has definitely been an adjustment that I've noticed since adding a bigger sprint emphasis to my workouts.
Have you ever tried the power racks? If you are, how fun are they or are they not fun? And then two, are like the beeping like tempo things like annoying? Because I feel like at some time they can kind of get annoying when you hear like beep, 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 beep over and over and over. I feel obviously they're there to help you, but I feel like that can get a little bit annoying after a little while.
Yeah. No, the power racks I've definitely tried. Um, it's not as much a thing in distance group, but mid distance we definitely still do power racks, and even in distance every so often. Um, Once a blue moon, we throw on the buckets. We put some dumbbells in the buckets, wrap the belt around our waist, and we're off. So it's definitely much heavier used in sprint group, but I enjoy using it every time. It's sometimes it can get heavy. Sometimes I
Yeah,
don't make it to 25 yards. Sometimes the weight starts pulling me back before I can make it to the wall. So it can be frustrating, but I know that it helps me. I know that
yeah,
this is this is it's a good way of adding power, adding extra emphasis to power per stroke, making sure you're remaining efficient while swimming is a very big thing. So yeah, and I always look forward to the power sets. They're always shorter shorter volume, more focused on that higher intensity, upper upper level effort. And yeah, so and then yeah, for tempo trainers as well. Um, they do get annoying. I agree. That was a good guess on your part that
yeah.
they do get annoying. Even for like mile pace, when I trained that mostly my sophomore year, we would do mile pace not so much. We would do it with tempo trainers not so much to focus on our stroke rate, our stroke tempo,
Okay,
but Coach Chess would be like set it to like 5.5 seconds. And then so we'd swim a 50-mile pace. And then he'd say, give yourself two beeps on the wall and then keep on going. So we do an ungodly amount of these mile pace 50s or 25s or whatever it is. And I just have to listen to two beeps. I'd be like, man, this tempo trainer, I just want to throw it. I want to rip it out my cabin, throw it against the wall. But yeah, they can beep. And then for the higher tempo stuff, so instead of 5.5 seconds, it's like every zero point 0.4 seconds. And that's what we're doing like during underwater sets, like do a dolphin kick every zero point 0.4 seconds and that thing's just beeping constantly. And it, yeah, definitely, gets on my nerves, but it's just a little, just trying to help.
yeah. No, it's just trying to make you better, trying to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. And obviously, I'm sure you have some big goals you want to achieve. I know that's the reason why you're kind of trying to focus on those couple of main events that you want to do, especially this is your last year. So, for you, like, what are kind of like the main goals that you have? Is it to win conference? Is it to go to nationals? Is it like again, kind of like the leadership role you talked about, trying to not only lead by example, but kind of be like a voice? Like you talked about being a senior and kind of trying to help people. I'm sure obviously you have freshmen, sophomores, junior that has come to you, try to ask for advice. That's just kind of what is part of being a senior, and I'm sure when you were them, you probably did the same exact thing. So, what would you say are some of those goals that you want to achieve, or is it more of truly not like the physical goals, like the obviously winning conferences? I'm sure is a really big goal, but kind of like that leadership aspect is what you're truly looking for at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's a good question. For my goals for this season, it's definitely to win conference. Um, Obviously my first 2 years here, we won conference. And it was great. I believe it was my sophomore year that both the men's and women's teams at Kenyon won conference, and that was a great experience because that hadn't happened in, I think, well over a decade for
Okay.
Kenyon. And so bringing that trophy back after last year, um, I'm still proud of the way we competed last year against Denison. But they had an incredible team, very very talented team. I think their graduating class last year was like the highest scoring class in NCAA history. Um, and so obviously they had a deep roster.
Yeah,
The men's team obviously won nationals. They wiped the floor with us, um, and at the dual meet earlier in the season, and so obviously now this year it's coming up again. It'll be in 6 days. It'll be on Saturday. So I'd say right now the goal is to win conference. Um, I think also making nationals would always be nice. I don't want to say that it's fully guaranteed for me, but right
yeah,
now I'd say it's looking like I'll be on the 4 free relay, as well as perhaps the 8 free relay. I threw down a good 2 free a couple weekends ago that
nice.
is putting me, up there in the relay. So aside from making it on relays, I do want to ultimately qualify individually.
Yeah,
That's something that has eluded me these past 3 years. I've been, somewhat close. A few of the years I've gotten B cuts, but obviously B cuts don't matter unless you've already qualified in something else. So B cuts themselves aren't going to get me to nationals. It'll be, a top 16 time actually. So
okay,
for the 2 free, for the 5 free, definitely want to push myself to hit a top 16 time in those events by the end of the season. And that would obviously, if I go a time that'll be top 16, I think that would very much help us win the conference portion of the goal as well.
yeah,
So winning conference, qualifying individually for nationals, and yeah, you touched on the leadership aspect. I want to be a huge leader on this team. I feel like I've been learning, I've been growing this year. I think there are definitely parts of my personality that I do need to adjust. Haven't been the perfect leader, but I've been happy with kind of the team that I've helped foster. The development of and the maturity of this team has you know grown over the course of this year, over the course of my 3-4 years here. The team has definitely grown. My senior class is a great class. We've lost a few guys over the years, unfortunately, to just either they quit the team or they've transferred or
yeah,
things like that. So it's not the same group of men that it was freshman year. But we've definitely grown close these past 4 years here, and it's always easy working with them. We all obviously share the same goals in that we want this team to be the best it can. And so yeah, I'd say I'm not sure if there's like a tangible goal
yeah.
in terms of leadership, but being that voice on the team is definitely something that yeah.
Yeah, which I think those are obviously great goals to have, and I really do hope you are obviously able to accomplish those goals. Hopefully, you're able to go to nationals for relays for individuals, stuff like that as well. And I know that you got a couple months left to go before your career wraps up. And I do want to kind of end on these two last questions. Because of that, what do you want to be remembered for? And just like kind of like the impact that you have left. Like, how do you want to just be remembered for during your time at Kenyon?
Yeah. Um I want to be remembered for my work ethic primarily. Um I've always prided myself on my ability to push myself in practices and at meets. And so I think I want to be remembered as someone who's, never shied away from a hard practice. Sorry. And yeah, someone who pushes not only myself but also my teammates. Obviously, I mentioned I try to be as vocal as I can
Yeah,
during practices when I see someone hanging their head or um, geez, um, anything like that. If they're not giving quite the effort that I know they can give in a set, I want to be there for them to encourage them, to motivate them, to do better. Obviously,
yeah,
we all have days where we're not feeling 100%, but that, I'm not immune to that either. There's been days where sorry, it's been days where I'm feeling, 1%. Obviously right now I'm going through it
Yeah,
with the cough. My throat's not treating me too well, but you best know that tomorrow morning practice I'll be vocal, I'll be loud in the pool encouraging others, because if you can't give the effort, if you're too tired, if you're too sick to give the effort in the pool, to the workout, you can always give it to bringing other people up. So I always want to be that positive voice, that positive force on the team, kind of motivating people and bringing people up, building them up. Um, is always so much better than bringing, negative energy, whether it's
yeah,
complaining about a set, complaining about, I don't know, an illness. Obviously there's, validity to complaining about, if you have an injury or if you're sick. That's always a bummer, but knowing where the line is to complain, and when it gets to a point where it's like, all right, now you're kind of bringing the team down, bringing the energy down in that way. So yeah, I want to be remembered for the, the teammate, the supporter that I know I am, um, and I want to be remembered as, someone who I don't know, I really like swimming that 4 free relay. Like that's
yeah.
genuinely, it's my favorite event, and so I want to be known as, someone who can step up for the team when they need them the most in a relay like that. You know, I caught myself by surprise as well. I caught myself off guard throwing down some times that I've gone in the 100 off of relays, because I feel like I swim the 100 free so differently in a relay than individually.
Yeah.
That relay start really helps me get off that first 50, because, as I said, my front end speed has never been my strength, and so using the relay start to give me that extra boost at the start of a race has always been a thing for me. So I want to be known as, someone who support motivates the teammates, but also someone who can step up and play a role in a winning relay and a winning, if it's individual. I would also love, obviously, to win something individually, but
Yeah.
being able to step up on a relay, and be a team player has always been, you know, usually the distance swimmers don't get to swim the relays. There's not a 4 by mile relay or a 4 by 500. So
That would
that's
be interesting.
that would be interesting. So the longest event, is obviously the 8 free relay, and even then, that's at most a mid distance event. So
Yeah.
being able to finally try my hand in the sprint events, this year has, and last year, has given me that extra, that extra motivation to really step up in a relay format and excel.
Yeah, I absolutely love that answer. I think your answer was great. I think the answer truly shows you what type of obviously person you are, what type of teammate you are, and it's just more about kind of obviously helping others. It's about kind of giving back a little bit, trying to be there, but also the four relay is probably one of the most electric relays in all of swimming. So I definitely understand that perspective. And I do want to give back a little bit more to you because I feel awful making you talk as much as you have, especially going through what you're going through right now. So I'm going to wrap
No
up with
worries.
one last question and might still make you talk a little while because I know what it means so much to you. But just what has the sport meant to you and why should others give it a try?
Ooh, yeah, that's a loaded question. Swimming to me is just a way I can. It's an outlet for me. It's an outlet, from whatever stresses or concerns I have from school or socially. I know when I head to the pool, none of that matters. It's just the next, 2 hour practice, 1 hour practice, if it's in the
Yeah,
morning, whatever. Um, the next 2 hours is just me and this set. Obviously, I have my teammates around me, but I just know that water can wash away my concerns for at least 2 hours. Maybe if I have a paper due that night, I can't just pretend it doesn't exist. But
yeah,
for those 2 hours, that shouldn't bother me. So it's a good outlet when I have those. When I have something weighing me down, I can, momentarily have a break from that worry. It's also something that I've been able to kind of measure my growth. I don't, equate times to being a good person, but seeing myself grow in the pool has helped me attribute, and realize, hey, I've also grown outside of the pool. I've also grown as a person, as a student,
Yeah,
um, as a brother, as a, a son, whatever you want to say. Um, it's helped me, kind of monitor my improvement year over year, inside and outside of the water. And so, yeah, it's obviously a pillar of my life, foundational piece of who I am today. And why should other people give it a try? I don't know. Why not? I would say why not? Why wouldn't you give swimming a try? It's it's a basic skill that'll be useful, maybe not in everyday life, but swimming is always fun. Obviously, my all my memories as a kid in my summer league were always good memories. Playing
yeah,
around in the water after practice with my friends. Um, so with the grinding day by day workouts also comes, you know, fun. There's always memories you
yeah.
make, whether it's in a practice, in a meet, outside of practice, in the locker room, whatever, with your teammates that'll stay with you forever. So obviously that can go with a lot of sports. Every sport, I'm sure,
Exactly.
has those
Yeah,
moments with the team, but swimming brings it, just brings a special place in my heart in the way that the team comes together. Whether because people think it's an individual sport until you realize that these people are sorry, pouring hours and hours together into this pool, doing all these practices together. Really brings us together as a team, and yeah, as a family. Like this team, I see as a family to me. The men's team is a brotherhood. We all love each other. We all care for each other. We want each other to succeed. Same with the women's team. We want the women to succeed. We, I don't know. We've developed so many relationships. There's so many dynamics on the team that I look forward to every day. Um, it's really special. It's a home away from home for me.
yeah.
Kenyon itself can be a home for me, but even then, another layer, Kenyon Swim and Dive, is also another home for me. So it's just a special community that we've formed, and memories will carry on forever, I'm sure. Um, yeah, from high school, from middle school, club teams. There's people I know from club teams I still talk to, from high school I still talk to, and yeah, from Kenyon, I'm sure I will. I'm talking to alumni that I were on the team when I was a freshman, sophomore that have graduated.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm sure I'll continue to talk to the people on this team right now. The freshmen on this team right now, the sophomores, the juniors. Once this year is over, once I've graduated, these bonds won't just disappear. So yeah,
Exactly. No, I completely agree with that. That's just like we talked about earlier, just the bonds, kind of the amount of time you put into swimming. I know you've given up so much to the sport. I know you still have so much more to give this year. And well, I really do appreciate you taking your time to join. I know you're not necessarily feeling super well, so hopefully I didn't completely blow out your voice and throat today talking so much. But I really do appreciate you joining. It's been honestly so much fun talking with you. One thing I always say to anyone that ever joins is if you ever do want to come back on, I'd love to have you back on. Maybe we can have a conversation after the season, or maybe mid-season or something that coming up here shortly. But like I said earlier, I do hope you achieve the goals you want to achieve. I know you have big goals ahead of you. I know you have a long season ahead of you, and I really do appreciate you taking a little bit over an hour and 20 minutes with me. It's been a ton of fun, and I'm sure we could talk much more longer, but I won't hold you to that. So really appreciate you joining. Good luck the rest of
yeah,
this year.
of course. Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been a great opportunity. Yeah, no worries about. I'm fine using my voice. The cough will come whether I'm talking or not talking. So it's been a
Yeah.
great time. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for inviting me onto this place. It's been very good.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate those kind words. Again, appreciate you joining. And yeah, that is a wrap to episode number 511. Thank you again to Teo for joining and tune in to the next episode.